Við erum stödd á höfninni á Stöðvarfirði fyrir framan byggingu sem eitt sinn hýsti frystihús en í dag sköpunarmiðstöð. Hér á efri hæðinni í gömlu Síló verksmiðjunnar nú að finna einstakt analóg upptökuver sem írski tónlistarmaðurinn Vinny og íslenska listakonan Una eiga heiður af. Þau fengu þó hjálp úr ýmsum áttum og ber þar helst að nefna John Brandt frá Texas sem hannaði upptökurýmið, en hann hefur margra ára reynslu af slíku og hannað ver víðsvegar heiminn. Upptökuveri dregur nafn sitt af fyrra hlutverki rýmisins og hefur verið nefnt Stúdíó Síló.
It started as an idea in 2014. Myself and Una, my Icelandic partner, we were living in Ireland and we said, okay, we want to move somewhere else. I was tired of Ireland, although I grew up there. So, and then we contacted Rosa Valtingoyer, who was running this project at the time. And she said, yeah, we have a space here. You can build a studio in it. It's the old ice silo. It's like really thick walls and really well insulated for sound. And then I think that night we just booked the tickets on Norrøna, and that was it, decided. So, yeah, and then it took 5 years to build it.
Rýmið mjög vel einangrað frá öðrum hlutum verksmiðjunnar og því hægt að syngja frá hjartarótum án þess að nokkuð hljóð laumist inn eða út, nema á geisladisk eða kassettu auðvitað.
But for you, this is more than a workplace. This is your playground as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's amazing when a lot of, you hear when people have a job that is their passion, and it's what they really enjoy doing, and that is the case. I mean, I love being able to record music and capture a performance, and also being able to get involved with performances. It's like, hey, that sounded not as good as last time. Maybe like change it a little bit, and then and sometimes the artist is really appreciates you getting involved, and then they come out with a better product in the end because you've collaborated. And I'm also a total nerd, so I love using all the equipment, and like, oh, I'm going to use this today on this, and oh, I've not used that before. Does it still work? And then and you're always discovering new ways to do things, and yeah, and new problems as well. Sometimes you have some problems, and it's like, why is that not sounding good? And then you realize, after an hour or something.
So Una, your wife, she has to drag you out of this place?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we usually have quite, it's funny with studios though, because traditionally studios, you will work crazy hours. A band will expect, traditionally like in the 90s or 80s, a band would expect to get 24 hours of your time for every day that, so you just don't sleep for the whole album making. But in my case, when we opened the studio, I said, okay, let's just have it sensible. If we start at 9 a.m., let's finish at 6. Because by the time 6 o'clock comes, not only is the band getting tired and unproductive, but I'm also, I'm pressing the wrong buttons. And
there's a lot of buttons.
There's a lot of buttons, yeah, there's quite a lot. So, yeah, it's also healthy, and that's the other concept that we have about running a studio here instead of some high-paced studio in New York where you're getting as much done as possible. Here it's more so that you get a band to come here. Like I was dealing with a booking this morning, where the band are gonna come here for a whole week, and it's going to be really relaxed. The producer is going to come as well, and it's going to be great because we'll have a whole week to work on this album. We won't be super stressed or anything, and it's just overall better, I think, and just spend the time and enjoy it,
Í hljóðverinu boðið upp á þann sjaldséða kost að taka upp með analóg upptökubúnaði. Græjurnar voru þó ekki keyptar nýjar út úr búð, heldur smíðaðar og endurgerðar af Vinny sjálfum úr gömlum búnaði og íhlutum sem aðrir voru hættir að nota eða höfðu talið ónothæfa.
I think a lot of things in here, except the computer, which is new, of course, but all of the old analog gear. This one is, as old as me, well, 1 year younger. This is from 1987, originally from Mesa Forte, this big mixing board. They bought it new back then in 1987, and it has made countless records in Iceland. And then when I got it, it was in a very bad shape. it couldn't be used in a studio. It was too bad shape. So I completely restored it, and now it works again, which is great. There's a lot of other stuff. I have stuff in here as old as like from the 1940s, for instance, like really old equipment, and it has a certain sound, you know. If you want to get that really beautiful vocal from a female singer, you know, that has that charm, you know, of like Ella Fitzgerald or someone, you can start, you know, you can get that if it's the right singer. You start using the old stuff, then you're you're using the right tools. There's a lot of half of the gear in here I built myself. I'm also an electronics guy. That's what I studied. So I spent a lot of time over the last 5 years, like in the nighttime, making equipment. So that was fun. It's all part of the dedication to the mission. Yeah. So,
do you use all of it, or is it some of it for show?
I will admit, like there is one cabinet that's not connected yet, but that's kind of the stuff that I don't like so much yet. I've not. It's a lot of like 80s digital stuff, but we don't. I mean, we don't on an analog session. This is the thing. Like we did like a fully analog session with. We did many of them in the last year. Like with Hjalmar, that was one of the first bookings. And they came here because they didn't want to use a computer. They were like, okay, let's go to Vinny's studio, let's record on tape, let's just use the mixing board and all his, you know, crazy stuff. And then they just took it away with them on computer, on digital afterwards, on a hard drive. And that was brilliant. And it sounded amazing. And it was, then you do start to use everything, you know, because you've got no computer. In the computer, you can do everything. You don't need all this equipment. But it's somehow nicer when you have the real thing, you know, and you can play with it. And yeah, that's when you start to use it a lot.
Markmiðið með verkefninu að bjóða tónlistafólki upp á þann möguleika að dvelja í lengri eða skemmri tíma á Stöðvarfirði og hafa völ á hljóðrita þar tónverk sín. En af hverju að leggja á sig alla auka vinnuna, tíman og auka búnaðinn sem þarf til að taka upp með analóg upptökubúnaði? Í hverju felst munurinn?
It's basically, I think I always come back to the thing of photographers, you know, and even like Polaroid cameras are coming back now. They've become pretty cool again. And that's analog, you know, you're taking a picture on film and it doesn't always come out the same way or as you expected it to come out. That's similar with analog recording, with audio, where you're trying to, with digital, you will get exactly what you put into the box. You know, you record some band, some drums or whatever, it will sound exactly very accurate and, you know, as it was played. But if you record analog on tape, you get a certain character from the tape. It's like, you know, a painting on a certain canvas when you're painting a picture. The material makes a difference, you know, what you're putting the thing onto. So there's also downsides to it. It's a lot of work. You know, if you make a full album analog, and which I have done, it is really a lot of work. You know, you cannot use the computer, you can't save anything, you know. Like obviously the recordings are saved on the tape, but all the buttons, everything you press, you just have to write it all down because, yeah, you've got to remember what you're doing. But that's how albums were done, you know, all the way up until, you know, somewhere around the early 90s. When computers were started to be able to record music, like every album, all these great albums were done just analog. And yeah, there's a certain charm in it. There's a certain, I will admit, you know, that there is a certain nostalgia in it, you know, of like, oh, we're doing it the old way. And that, if that helps someone make a better record, then that's enough for me, even if it doesn't, you know, even if it doesn't sound different on analog. If it's going to make them enjoy the process more, then brilliant, let's do it.
You never get lost in all of this equipment and adding on to it. It is your hobby as well.
Yeah, it's totally my hobby, and I'm, you know, in my workshop I have like countless, you know, pieces of studio equipment that are not finished, you know. But I think what I have to understand as well when I go into a session is that I can never spend half an hour playing with something and the musicians are waiting for me. You know, they're like, what's he doing? Oh, he's just like, he's playing with one of his, you know, piece of equipment. No, it needs to, you know, you need to be quick. And that's the thing, and that's what I'm getting used to more now with having this. This is my first time, you know, running a professional studio, that I'm getting quicker at things. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, and like, yeah, that sounded good last time, so we'll put it like that. And then, you know, and then they do the take, and you're like, yeah, okay, it sounded good. So, right, now we won't touch it. You know, yeah, you've got to be sensible, you know, and that's why also, like I said, you know, we never use everything, because then you just get lost in it. I'm just gonna spend forever, you know, adjusting things, and yeah, that's not what we're here for.
There's a lot of you in here. There's a little bit of you in everything.
Yeah.
Not anyone can walk in here and start using all of this equipment.
That's the funny thing. Like in modern digital studios, where you don't necessarily have one of these. You would just have a computer and, you know, like a nice work surface, and any engineer can come in usually and, you know, work quite comfortably in that environment. But in here, like when, you know, we have had sessions where, you know, an engineer will come in with the band, then, you know, I need to always say when we're booking, like, look, you really, like, you get me with the studio. You know, that's just how it is, because this place, you know, it's got all sorts of, you know, I know how everything is wired, and there's, you know, there's like 60 microphone connections coming from the rooms. There's like many hundreds of connections to the equipment, and yeah. But yeah, it's quite complicated, but I should write a manual. I'm thinking about that actually. To write like a manual for Stúdíó Síló, on, you know, in case I do want to, you know, book sessions and not be working here.
It's going to be a long manual.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty long. Yeah.
Tónlistafólk getur þá einnig stofnað til samstarfs í sköpunarmiðstöðinni við annað skapandi fólk og þegið aðstoð á ýmsum sviðum, en það er akkúrat í takti við markmið sköpunarmiðstöðarinnar að stuðla að samvinnu og þekkingamiðlun. Hér er því hægt að fullklára verk allt frá fyrstu nótu til útgáfu.
So here now we're in we just call this the side room, because we're just to the side of the control room, and we have this room and another smaller room off from the main like performance space, and we can basically isolate things out. You know, like if you have a singer who you might need to isolate from the drums, because the drums are super loud, but you're recording her at the same time as everyone else, but you want to capture just the singing. So we use the rooms for them purposes, also for like amplifiers for guitars. Sometimes you want the guitar amplifier to be really loud, because that's where it sounds best usually. So walking through these rooms can be pretty dangerous to your ears in the middle of a session. So that's what we use these spaces for, and everything is really well soundproofed with like sand-filled doors. These are 80 kilos each, these doors that we built ourselves. So when you close them, there's no sound getting through to the other rooms. It's really, really impressive.
What about the walls?
The walls as well, everything is double. The wall is in there somewhere, and this is all stained in these frames, so that kills the sound in the room, so that's why it sounds nice and dead in here. And the walls are like 4 layers of gypsum, and it's really crazy. Yeah. And then we go in here to the live room, which is the main performance space, and a little bit messy at the moment because we're in the middle of making an album with a guy from Stúdíó. But in here, so normally we normally have the drums here, and we can have, as I said before, we can have people separated into the other rooms. But here you can comfortably fit a full band, you know, or a little small choir, or yeah, and yeah, it's a nice cozy space, lots of natural light.
Coming from a big city to Stöðvarfjörður, to an analog studio and an ice silo, this must be quite an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's quite a crazy thing to do, which is, you know, really exciting for people, which is nice. And
so you have the third room here as well.
Yeah, so we have a third recording room, which is also acoustically treated to sound, you know, really good for music. So we just call this the booth. So it's could be used for vocals. You know, we've had vocalists in here, and also again guitar amps. If we want to close something off that's really loud, we just put it in here, put microphones on it, and then, you know, close the door, and that's, yeah, then that's it. This is the smallest room, and every room, the dimensions and the walls, everything is calculated to sound as good as it can be, and that's all John's crazy genius that's gone into that.
Yeah,
so
it all serves a purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything you see, I mean, it's made to look nice, but also everything is, you know, there's a reason why this wall has wood on it and the rest, other walls don't, because this has a different, it responds differently to the sound than the other walls. I understand some of it, but I wouldn't say I understand it all. That was his job, you know, he's the professional in that game.
But the colours, they're just for
Colours,
visual.
yeah, the colours. That was Una and Rosa. They were in charge of the colour scheme of the studio. I'm slightly colourblind, so that's why I was not hired for that job. Yeah.
You're more than happy to be in the wiring.
Yeah. I was doing all the wiring and yeah, a lot of the carpentry and yeah.